Metroid Dread was rumored a very long time ago, but never confirmed. But then we were completely surprised by an announcement at E3's Nintendo Direct, and then it released in October of the same year. People went wild, but what did it do to the prices of the back catalog? Welcome to Retronomics, the series that follows price trends in video games. And Metroid is such a popular series, but it just doesn't sell as well as other Nintendo IPs. That's why when an actual mainline entry that's a new entry reaches fans, there's a huge push to get it to sell as much as possible in hopes that there will be more Metroids. Metroid is a beloved Nintendo franchise that doesn't get as much love as the larger franchises like Super Mario, Zelda, Smash Bros., Mario Kart, Fire Emblem, Kirby. I mean, the list goes on. But now in 2021, we have a new Metroid story with Metroid Dread, the first new 2D Metroid game in almost 20 years, and the first original Metroid story ever in 11 years, 14 if you don't count Other M, which a lot of people don't. And speaking of 14, there are 14 game prices that we're going to cover here. Usually I include only mainline games, but I decided to include the spin-offs as well. And I am missing Metroid Dread because it just came out and you already know what that price is. It's not really going to change too much. We'll get into Metroid prices in just a second, but first, here's how Retronomics works. I get all of my price data from pricecharting.com, and I also take a look at eBay's sold listings as well to make a determination on where the price of the game is going to go. Is it going to go up, down, or stay the same? All of the games were released in North America, and I'll specify if it's a loose price or complete in box price. All prices are accurate as of the publishing of this video, which is listed right next to the subscribe button. So if you're finding this video a couple of months down the road and the prices aren't accurate, well, I'm sorry, but if you like this type of content, subscribe for future episodes so you'll be like my core audience and never miss an episode. Now let's take a look at some Metroid prices. The first Metroid game for the NES is pretty rough to get into. There's no maps, it's just exploring. The loose copy price of Metroid has been under $20 for ages, even through the pandemic, but there was a spike in September up to $30. But it's on its way back down in value, so I'd wait a little bit to pick it up, especially since it's available on the Nintendo Switch Online service with save states. Metroid 2 Return of Samus has been rising since the beginning of January. A loose copy is almost twice as what it was at the beginning of the year, but it is plateauing out. Game Boy collecting has been picking up lately, and I do think that this is one of the better games to get, so it might be a good idea to keep an eye on this one. I don't think that it'll spike soon, but I would think about getting it now since it doesn't look like it's going to drop in value anytime soon. Super Metroid is regarded as the best Metroid game, and it's held its value pretty well over the years. The price for a loose copy started to really rise since January of 2021, and it peaked in June, but it does look like the price is not going to go down anytime soon. Prices are all over the place though, so you still might be able to find a deal from someone who's just looking to sell. It's also available on the Nintendo Switch Online shop if you want to see what the fuss is all about. Metroid Fusion laid low for years before finally getting noticed in January of 2021. A loose copy peaked just last month at $103 and is now starting to go down, but not dramatically. Expect the Game Boy Advance games to hold their value since these 2D Metroid games are primarily on handhelds. I would probably buy now since the quality of these games is really high and Nintendo doesn't really seem to be interested in Game Boy or Game Boy Advance games for their online services, at least for now. Metroid Zero Mission is a remake of the original. It adds a ton of quality of life features not available in the original, so a lot of people enjoyed this one, and as such, the price of a loose copy has gone completely out of control, almost quadrupling in price since the beginning of the year and spiking again after a dip in August. So it is probably a good idea to buy at a price that you're comfortable with now, but just like Fusion, they are available digitally on the Wii U. The NES classics were a pretty novel feature for the Game Boy Advance. NES games on the go? What a concept. The NES Game Boy games weren't the best version of these games. Certain cropping had to be done to fit these games on the Game Boy Advance, but that doesn't seem to have had an effect on the price because since January the price of this game has doubled in value. It plateaued for a little bit, but it is now on its way back up. I don't think that it will go higher, but don't expect a drop off in the near future. Metroid Prime is the first 3D Metroid. Turning the side-scrolling dungeon crawler into a first-person shooter made the fan reception pretty mixed at first, but now the Prime series is allowed at the Super Metroid table. A complete copy of just Metroid Prime, not the Wind Waker copy or the Echoes disc, seems to flirt with $40 every so often, but never seems to quite get there. The availability of the trilogy for the Wii seems to keep the price in check. I would buy now or wait, the price doesn't seem to be going anywhere, at least until Metroid Prime 4 has a firm release date. Metroid Prime 2 Echoes is the sequel to Metroid Prime, and it is more expensive. A complete in-box copy is about twice as expensive as Metroid Prime, but I would expect the price to level out and drop over time. Sold listings seem to indicate that we might see it drop for the next couple of months, so I would wait for now and maybe buy after Christmas. Now here's an interesting price trend, Metroid Prime Pinball. It's not even a mainline Metroid game, but it's fetching a high dollar amount, higher than most games on this list. The price is starting to level out, but time will tell if the price drop is significant enough for a lot of people to consider it. It didn't even sell that well when it was released. Most people were looking for an actual Metroid game, not a spin-off, so keep an eye on it, especially if you're into digital pinball. Metroid Prime Hunters is a side mission set between Metroid Prime and Metroid Prime Echoes, and it's not that expensive. First-person games on small handhelds don't really do all that well, but they work well enough on the hardware. The price spiked recently, but don't let that dip fool you. Some cart-only sales got in with the CIB pricing, so expect the price that price charting has it listed for to be off a bit until the reports can correct the price. Copies are going between $45 and $60 currently, so it looks like that price is going to be the norm going forward. Metroid Prime 3 Corruption is pretty inexpensive compared to the other Metroid Prime games, less than $20 for a complete copy on average. The motion controls have been added to the game, making the first-person shooting a little bit more accurate. The reason why the price is so low is because it's also on the more desirable Metroid Prime Trilogy set, which came out only 2 years after this game, so I don't really see the price of this one fluctuating too much. Metroid Prime Trilogy is one of the more sought after Wii games, and as people wait for Metroid Prime 4, the price will continue to climb. All three Metroid games are on one disc and all have updated Wii motion controls, plus it comes in a really nice steelbook. There is a reprinted version for cheaper, but I would spend the extra money on this collector's edition. The price of this game will probably remain high for the foreseeable future, at least until that rumored Metroid Prime HD collection drops. That probably will never come over because Nintendo loves not doing what people want. Metroid Other M was critically panned, and I actually got a couple of copies sealed from a thrift store a little while ago after this game came out. It's starting to get a little bit more appreciation because of Metroid Dread, but it is still inexpensive and will probably remain there for a very long time. It's still a game that people don't really consider a real Metroid game, but picking it up now wouldn't be that much of a risk, and it's a Metroid game. Metroid Samus Returns is a remake of Return of Samus for the Game Boy, and like Zero Mission, it adds modern Metroid features and adds a parry feature which had a lot of mixed reactions from the start. The price for a complete copy of this game has remained fairly consistent since its release, so picking it up now would probably be a good idea, especially if you enjoyed the style of Metroid Dread. As you can see, it doesn't look like Metroid Dread affected the prices of these games, as they were already on the rise well before Metroid Dread was even announced. It is really interesting to see that Game Boy Advance and DS Metroid games are climbing really high in value, while the GameCube Metroid Prime games, with GameCube collecting being as hot as it is, remained relatively steady, and even when they did climb, they didn't really get all that expensive. Of course, I'm tracking specifically the main base versions of Metroid Prime and Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, and not those crazy variants of Metroid Prime like the one with Wind Waker. I guess you could assume that more people are focused on the Metroid Prime trilogy on the Nintendo Wii. That's gonna do it for this episode of Retronomics. The next topic will be OG Xbox, so if you have specific games that you want me to track, leave them down in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with those who might find it interesting. And if you're new here and like what you see, consider subscribing for future content. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at snicktendo. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Super Nicktendo, and I'll see you next time.